Hello again. All right, today we're going to dip into module 15. And, oh, that's my dog Spot behind me, and he's sleeping, so let's keep it quiet, okay? Don't wake him up. It gets nasty. And so anyhow, what's going to happen on this particular video here is going to go through just a recap of the hierarchy of controls. And if you've been in any of my classes for 10 minutes or so, you know about that. But we're going to go over it one more time because I want to ask you to use it in an assignment. And the assignment's going to be, I want you to think of any kind of fire type of hazard you can think of. And I mean sparks from welding or grinding, hot work, house at work, home at work, anything at all, anything hot, you can catch something fire, muffler a car, maybe even, I mean, anything you think of that might be a fire hazard. And there's a lot of them out there, not cigarettes, matches, all that stuff. It's easy. In fact, I made a couple of lists here, and I'll just give them, gasoline, okay, storage at your house, and container at your house. So that's a hazard while you're traveling, a fire hazard. So there's candles are certainly a fire hazard, but there's a whole lot of things that you can find that are fire hazards. There's going to be a little video here about a firefighter in Oshkosh that goes through a house and picks out some things in the house, and you can use that look at it and give you some ideas. But I don't want you to quote from that video for this particular assignment. What I want you to do though is think of as many of these different hazards that you can find, embers from wildfires, for instance. Just I want you to think about it for a while. Don't just pick 5 things. You better have a lot, because I got a whole lot of them. I found a whole bunch of them just in about 10 minutes. And I want you to think about them, the hazards, and their hazards. And then, again, then you want to use the hierarchy of controls and figure out what to do about these hazards. Now I'm going to go to the PowerPoint, and here's going to be a recap of the hierarchy of controls just to refresh your memory. And I'm going to give you one that's really, it kind of comes up in that video too, is a candle. Okay. So you have a candle, a regular candle, you light on fire and you set it there. We know they're fire hazards, obviously. So now, okay, under hierarchy of controls, in this particular video, the fireman said, okay, let's use one of these, big battery powered candles. So there, that's substitution, right? You took a hazard of candle, a real lit candle, and substituted something less hazardous, a battery operated little camera. That's a great example of the hierarchy of controls falling place. In that particular case, that would be a substitution. You can do elimination, you get all 5 of them, right? And PPE, not so much in this thing. I don't think you could. I haven't thought of anything about PPE, but you might come up with something. I mean, you could, like in welding or something like that, for sparks or protective equipment you use there. That's a good idea. But anyhow, come up with as many hazards as you can. And there's a lot of them, so don't give me 3 or 4. That's not going to hack it. And then use the hierarchy of controls and submit it. And I'll put up an assignment for it. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and give you a recap of the hierarchy of controls here. And just, oh, geez, you've never seen that before, you say? Don't believe that. Anyhow, and if you've never been in one of my classes before, well, you're going to get used to this one. All right, this is, why do I like the hierarchy of control so much? Because number one, it's good. It's time tested. It's something that it's not just you can forget about it when you're done with this class. You're going to go to class, you're going to be out there in the field someday, and something's going to happen. Your company's going to buy a new piece of equipment, or you're going to go to another facility, or they bought another facility. You're going to have something happen where you have to make a decision of what are we going to do about the hazards in this particular situation or on this particular piece of equipment. And so, and everybody's going to be looking at you. And you're going to be able to say, all right, let's take a look at this from the hierarchy of controls. Let me shut this stupid phone off. I don't want to wake up Spot. And you're going to be able to say, let's get down the hierarchy of controls. Can we eliminate it? Can we substitute something for it? And it's not so much that it's going to make you look good, although it will, but it's also going to give you a path to follow as you're thinking to follow through here to help you make the decision, a better decision. So let's look at this. This is it in a nutshell. If you don't look at anything else on here, that'd be pretty good. Elimination, what does it do? Physically remove the hazard. All right, you just take it away. You got a candle there, get the candle out of here. Boop, you've removed the hazard. That's fine. Substitution, replace the hazard. You got a candle here, a real candle, you replace it with a fake candle. Perfect. You did it. Engineering controls, isolate people from the hazard. I don't know what you do about that. You got a candle here, you can build a guard around it. I don't know what good that would do. But administrative controls. All right, substitution, replace the hazard. Engineering controls, isolate people from the hazard. Administrative controls change the way people work, and PPE protect the worker with personal protective equipment. And you can see on the left-hand side, there's the color code there, most effective down to the least effective. So this is just a recap. We're going to whip through these pretty quick. Hazard controls, the control methods at the top of the graphic are potentially more effective and protective than those at the bottom. Following this hierarchy normally leads to the implementation of inherently safer systems where the risk of illness or injury has been substantially reduced. Elimination, stop doing it altogether. Move it to a safer area, building height, etc. Contract that out to specialists like electricians or construction. You can do that. Substitution, use a less hazardous, and usually that comes with a chemical. The candle, that was a really good example. It's not a chemical, but replace lead-based paint, for example. Clean with water spray instead of chemicals. Those are substitution. Those are usually best in the earlier stages of development of something. Once something's already up and running, they're harder to implement. They go most effective. They're the most effective though, because it's gone, or in one way, in one shape or another, or it's already been replaced by something that's not as hazardous. So they're most effective and the most difficult to implement in an existing process where major changes in equipment and procedures may be required. If the process is still at the design or development stage, elimination and substitution of hazards may be inexpensive and simple to implement. Engineering controls are the next logical step, independent of worker interactions, meaning that they're there. You come to work, you work on this machine, there's a guard between you and the point of hazard. And so you don't have to do anything. They're difficult to bypass and nullify. Can guards be removed? Of course they can. But they're difficult. They should be anyhow. They shouldn't be able to be quickly moved and easily moved. They can be expensive initially, but they usually last a long time, as long as the equipment should. Engineering controls include machine guarding, and it's probably the most common engineering control by a long shot, enclosing the hazard with something. Control rooms, interlocks on machine door guards. That's a good idea. And some machine built equipment has those built in. Work platforms instead of ladders. Two-handed controls where something you might get your hand in, they make you activate two hands controls so your hand can't be there when it's activated. Administrative controls are the next step, relatively inexpensive to establish. Hey, you write a policy about that, or write a procedure. That's pretty cheap to do that. But they can be costly to sustain and keep them going. Require staff to implement and keep updated. When you have an administrative control, what do you have to do? You got to train people on it, right? You just can't write a piece of paper and hang it up on the wall and figure people are going to do it. That ain't going to happen. So shadow or buddy system for trainees is a good way. Training on a job hazard analysis, JHAs or JSA is a good idea. Hazard awareness training, but you have to train people on administrative controls as a rule. The training is an administrative control. Less exposure, that's a good way to do it. Job rotation or work rest cycles. So working on this job for a while, and maybe in the mornings and in the afternoons doing something different. That's a good administrative control too. Written policies like job descriptions is a good help. If there's a job that is safer doing it a particular way, then you write a way to do it. Job hazard analysis, when they break down the job into each individual step and look at the hazards involved in that, that's an administrative control. Lockout, tagout, and other OSHA policies are all in this administrative controls. Warning signs, labels, and alarms too. You have a sign up that says whatever danger, hazard, that's an administrative control also. And then PPE is the last line of defense. It's relatively inexpensive to establish. I missed a minute there. And it must be sustained, and it's less effective than other methods. But here's the problem with PPE is it requires significant effort by the affected workers. They have to have it, they have to use it, they have to know how to use it, they have to be trained in it too. And the company has to be sure it's there for them. So there's a lot of downsides to PPE, and sometimes it's the only thing you can do. Like a lot of times in hearing protection, that's the only thing can be done. PPE consists of a lot of things: hard hats, eye protection, safety shoes, gloves, welding helmets, goggles, clothing and gloves, respirators, hazmat suits, a lot of different kind of PPE out there. So briefly, controls do this: elimination, physically remove the hazard; substitution, replace the hazard; engineering, isolate people from the hazard; administrative, change the way people work; PPE, protect the worker from the hazard. PPE does not eliminate the hazard, though; it just protects people from it. You put your hearing protectors in, the noise is still there; it just protects your ears. There it is again, in case you forgot. And that's something you should be very, very familiar with. And you, in any of my courses, you're going to see that. It's a great tool, and it makes a lot of sense to. I've used it a lot, and I can't find a flaw in it to thinking of it, to be honest with you. It's so anyhow, on this particular assignment, it's going to be hazards / hierarchy of controls or something to that effect. I haven't named it yet. And so I want you to come up with a lot of fire hazards. I want you to think about them before you dive into this. Think about it for a day or so and come up with a list of them. And you're going to come up with a list of now a good many of them, more than a dozen, I would think. And then you're going to administrate, give some ideas, and there could be more than one of how to deal with this hazard and what you can do about it, and apply the hierarchy of controls to it. So be specific. This is the candle here, and you don't have to give us why it's a hazard. We kind of know that. And but we can eliminate it by banning it through a administrative control, for example, fire protection plan, fire prevention plan. That's one way of dealing with it. Or we could substitute it with a battery operated candle. So there's two ways you can get rid of it. So anyhow, that is this recap of the hierarchy of controls I want to go through, since it's going to be important in this assignment. I want you to use it properly. And so now I got a feed spot now. So that's it for this. Good luck and be safe.